Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we re-diving deep into a fascinating topic. Why a woman who embodies the Sigma female archetype will sometimes abruptly end relationships, friendships, or connections, without warning, without fanfare. If you've ever been on the receiving end of this, or you find yourself doing it, this video is for you. We'll explore not just the what and the how, but the why behind it. The internal logic, the emotional architecture, and how understanding this can help you respond or self-reflect in healthier ways. First, before we get into why the cutoffs happen, we need to clarify, what exactly is a Sigma female? You might have heard of alpha or beta personality types, leaders, followers, etc. A Sigma female is different. She doesn't fit neatly into either of those roles. She's fiercely independent, valuing her solitude and her own path. She doesn't seek validation from the crowd. Her sense of self isn't tied to what everyone else thinks. Most importantly, she trusts her internal compass more than external signals. She'll always do things her way. Because of this, she often values depth over breadth, a few intimate, meaningful connections rather than a large, superficial social circle. This mindset makes her appear self-sufficient, quietly confident, and sometimes a little mysterious. This uniqueness is a huge part of her power, but it's also part of what can make her relationships fragile or subject to these sudden endings. So when you're close to someone like this, you might notice certain patterns before a cutoff happens. These aren't always glaring red flags. They're often subtle, but they signal that something deeper is at work. You might notice a gradual withdrawal of her energy. She might slowly pull back. Her messages become less responsive. She takes less initiative to reach out, and there's more silence. It's not dramatic, just quieter. She might also start practicing selective interaction. She'll still engage in what truly matters to her, but she'll start avoiding large gatherings, superficial small talk, or any interactions that feel draining. She's preserving her energy. You'll also see increased boundary enforcement. Things that were once okay suddenly aren't. She might say no more often, cancel plans, or set much stronger limits. You'll also feel it in her nonverbal signals, a look, a shift in her tone, a change in her mood. It's not always in her words, but you can feel that something has changed, and when you ask what's wrong, she may offer a minimal explanation, or none at all, which can feel alarming. When you notice these signs, it's not a warning in the conventional sense. It's simply her inner system responding to something. And if that issue persists, the cutoff may be inevitable. Now, let's get to the heart of it. Why does a Sigma female cut people off without warning? There are a few core reasons. First and foremost is the preservation of her autonomy. A foundational trait of a Sigma female is her independence. If a relationship starts to threaten her freedom or self-sovereignty, she may quietly decide it no longer serves her. It's not always personal in the way the other person sees it. It's about keeping her inner world intact. Second, it's all about energy and alignment. Sigma women often operate on a principle of resonance. They are drawn to people and conversations that align with their values. When someone is out of alignment, maybe their actions or expectations conflict with hers, she senses that the dynamic is draining rather than enriching. Because she prefers depth over superficiality, she won't invest in a relationship that feels misaligned or emotionally exhausting, and she'll cut it fast, because dragging out a mismatch just isn't in her nature. Third, she's avoiding drama and repetitive cycles. If she perceives repeated patterns of disappointment, conflict, or being undervalued, and if her attempts to shift things haven't worked, she'll just exit instead of staying in that loop. That exit comes without warning because the decision was made internally, quietly processed, and the why is entirely self-contained. It's not a grand gesture, it's a silent departure. Fourth, she is fiercely protective of her peace. If her interactions become too chaotic, toxic, or demanding, she sees cutting ties as the most direct way to preserve her inner peace. This isn't selfish in a negative sense. It's about maintaining a stable foundation so she can continue to show up in the world as her authentic self. And finally, she has a non-attachment to traditional roles. Unlike someone who feels defined by their social connections, the Sigma female isn't bound by an obligation to keep everyone around. She doesn't feel the need to stay in relationships out of loyalty or expectation if they no longer fit. This is why the cutoff can feel so abrupt to others. It bypasses the traditional negotiation phases because she has already processed it all and moved on internally. If you're on the receiving end of a sudden cutoff, it can feel abrupt, painful, and deeply confusing. You're left wondering, what did I do? Why didn't she warn me? Understanding her internal logic doesn't make the hurt go away, but it can shed some light on what happened. From her perspective, the dynamic no longer fit. She valued her peace more than explaining herself, and she chose to move on rather than drag out a mismatch. So while it may feel abrupt and unfair to you, it's actually consistent with her internal code. Let's zoom in on some specific triggers. What kind of situations prompt a Sigma female to say enough and quietly leave? A big one is chronic disrespect or repeated boundary violations. When someone repeatedly disregards her boundaries or violates her trust, she'll conclude the connection is no longer viable. Another trigger is inauthenticity. She won't invest deeply in shallow, surface-level engagement. If a relationship is constantly draining her energy, instead of nourishing it, it becomes a liability. And finally, a mismatch in values or goals. If she senses that your life paths are diverging significantly, she'll decide that staying would only hold her back. For her, solitude is always preferable to a toxic connection. Now, to be clear, a Sigma female's cutoff is almost never about a desire to punish someone. It's not an impulsive, emotionally driven blowout, even if it feels that way. And it's definitely not a sign that she lacks feeling. She can care very deeply, but her decision to leave is often a rational one that protects her emotional well-being. If you recognize yourself in this description, if you are the one who cuts people off, it's important to reflect on why you feel the need to exit. Naming the specific trigger can be powerful, and while you don't owe anyone an explanation, sometimes a brief, honest one can provide closure and preserve your own integrity. If you do end it, make sure the cutoff is clean. Mixed signals only create more confusion. And remember to allow yourself to grieve, even if you chose the ending. This is a growth opportunity to learn what you truly require in your relationships. On the other hand, if you've been on the receiving end, try not to personalize it in a way that leads to self-blame. It often reflects her internal logic more than your worth. Give her space. Trying to force a reconnection will likely push her further away. Instead, reflect on the relationship. Were there mismatches in values or energy? What did you learn? Honor your feelings of hurt and confusion. They are valid. Then, focus on moving forward and attracting relationships that respect your boundaries too. Ultimately, no matter which side you're on, healthy relationship practices are key. Transparency, respect for autonomy, and self-reflection are crucial. So, when a Sigma female quietly leaves, it's rarely about cruelty. It's about self-sovereignty, alignment, and peace. Understanding that gives you insight, whether you're the one leaving or the one left behind. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Have you experienced this? What was your takeaway? I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, remember, staying true to yourself is a strength, and choosing peace isn't selfish. It's essential. Smash that notification bell so you don't miss our next video, where we'll cover how Sigma females navigate love and intimacy. Share this with someone who might need some clarity. And as always, stay aligned. Peace.